All right, well, good afternoon, folks. My name is Susan Jane Bigelow. I'm the Assistant Director of the library, and we're going to be talking about information literacy today, information literacy in the classroom. So let me ask you this question first off. What do you know about information literacy? Do you know what that is? Do you have any ideas about what that might be, or what?
It's about utilizing, it's a digital realm, using information, understanding how to use the information.
Understanding how to use information? Absolutely, that is a part of it. What else about it? What else?
Understanding how to find the information.
There, understanding how to find information. That is another important piece of it, yes. Anything else? Those are good.
There's no trick question.
So information literacy is all about how to use information well. Because we're just surrounded by information. There's so much of it out there. And our students get bombarded with information all the time. So the question is, how do we help our students become more information literate people? How do we help them become, very savvy connoisseurs of information and consumers of information? So to start off here, my question, does that work? Of course that doesn't work. There. Here's my opening question for us. How do we know it's true? How do we know it's true or not?
Check your resources.
All right, check your resources. What do you mean by check your resources?
Multiple sources, they do the
Find out
same
if they're
things.
credible.
Ah, good, great.
Find out if they're current.
Currency, credibility. Yep. How else do you know?
Well, it sort of depends on what type of information you're thinking about.
Could be.
If it's science, is it based on peer-reviewed research? Is it published? What kind
Right.
of publications is it? Is it a quality publication? Is it just any old, online
Right. What,
publication?
are you looking at Facebook or are you looking at an actual journal?
Right.
Fake news.
Can we always trust journal articles though?
Not necessarily, but
Not necessarily. No.
you would hope.
Well, you sure would hope. But there are things that get through, aren't
Yes.
there? Yes, there are some very strange and wrong things that have been published, such as the MMR vaccine causing autism. I remember bringing this up in a classroom very recently, and there's still people who believe that that's true. All the damage that caused, and that was 20 years ago now, that was published in The Lancet, but that was a very damaging thing. So yes.
Something's been published about a up-and-coming drug, and it's put out by a pharmaceutical, you have
Right.
to wonder, so
Oh, sure.
double check that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's always going to be studies that have biases. There's always going to be information that leaves things out or that is just completely wrong. And it does seem like we live in a time of misinformation, doesn't it? That there's a lot of information that is wrong or incomplete or one-sided floating around out there. And the question is, how do we help our students navigate that? Not just for school, but for the rest of their lives as citizens and participants in society as well. So, all right. Let me give you an example of some ways that we can actually figure out how something is true or not. And there's often a process that we'd have to go through. So this is actually a Facebook post that actually was posted by somebody that I knew. And so this is where a lot of people start with information, isn't it? They see something on their Facebook page and respond to it, or they believe it, or they read it, or whatever. It often starts here. So here's a Facebook post called "The Suicide of Germany," and it looks like it's about migrants. All right. So does this look like a biased post, just looking at the title and the blurb there? Do you suspect there's a bias there? There might be. But how could we figure that out? So what we could do is we could start tracing it back and figure out, all right, who's that person? What is the Gatestone Institute? I've never heard of them. Who are they? So I did a little research on them, and I found out that they are a think tank. Now, to be a think tank, all you have to do is gather a couple of people in a room and call yourselves a think tank. That's it. That's really all you need to do. So that doesn't really mean anything. They call themselves an International Policy Council. How nice. Their leader is someone called Nina Rosenwald. And she is very rich. That doesn't really tell you much of anything either. So what else can we find out about these people? Oh, that's who she is. So she is somebody who has a lot of connections to the Islamophobic fringe, as this puts it. So this is somebody who feels a certain way about certain groups. So that tells us something about that, that think tank already. And here's somebody else who was involved with that think tank. This was somebody who was a very far-right member of the European Parliament. He got into a lot of trouble. And there's another one, he was the leader of that party there. And he wrote articles for them. So there's a lot of connections with sort of the far right, the fringe right. Now we're starting to get a picture of who these people are. Let me go back and talk about that. Yeah.
Why do you believe that information?
Well, that, of course, is a great question. This information depends on whether or not you believe Max Blumenthal and the Nation. This is actually quite true. There's lots of corroborating information about this. This was published in the New York Times. And mostly I can find out whether or not these people who are reporting this are actual journalists who know what they're doing. And you can corroborate it through multiple sources. That's how. So yeah, so I can find a lot of corroborating evidence that suggests that that institute that's putting this out has a very, very right-wing Islamophobic bias. There's lots of evidence for that. So that's a great question. How can you figure out whether anything is actually true? So yeah, so like we discussed before, trying to figure out whether or not something is true, we have to put it through a lot of different tests, don't we? Okay. Do a lot of us think about that when we're looking at information online?
All the time.
Yeah.
You think our students did?
No,
You think most people in our society do?
no.
No, definitely not. And technology is really to blame for a lot of it, but they're also trying to fix it in some ways. So yeah, they're trying to get rid of all this. Google's trying to push down neo-Nazi sites from their results and trying to hide them a little bit more, make them less prominent. I mean, these people are very good at gaming search engines because there's an algorithm they can go through. So technology can help us, but only up to a point. We really can't rely on Facebook and Twitter and Google and just technology in general to protect us and our students from bad information. That's really up to us. We have to be smart about it. So how can we be smart about it? We can be information literate people. The definition of information literacy. First off, recognizing that you need information. That's actually really important. It's a very important first step, actually realizing I need to go out and find something instead of relying on your own knowledge. Secondly, being able to search for and find information in an effective way. And that means actually being able to use a search engine instead of just typing in a couple of words and hoping for the best. Evaluating information critically, what we've been talking about just now. Being able to figure out, can I trust this source? Is it as reliable as it can be? And then lastly, using information wisely and ethically. So being able to put something together in a manner that doesn't infringe on copyrights, in a manner that is ethical. So those are information literacy skills. And that's a big constellation of skills that are there. Information literacy, you hear about different literacies all the time. So information literacy has a lot in common with these. With something like media literacy, we want our students to be able to understand the media. There's a lot of overlap there between media literacy and information literacy. Digital literacy, same thing. Being able to know how to use a computer and understand technology overlaps with information literacy in a lot of ways. Certainly academic literacies, there's a huge amount of overlap. So there's a lot of things that we talk about in higher education, different types of knowledge and literacies that have a lot of overlap with information literacy. What that means is that we often in our classes are teaching some information literacy skills. Maybe without deliberately thinking of them as information literacy skills, but we probably do something. I discovered that talking with lots of faculty, they often do something. And that's a great start. What we want, though, is we want to help our students be successful. We want our students to, the point of this, the whole reason why we're here, is we want to help our students be able to go out in the world, get good careers, and be successful in life. So, but being information literate is a way to help them be successful. Being able to find information, use it well, find reliable stuff, that's actually very attractive to employers. So there is a reason for our students, especially if you're going into like the healthcare fields, being able to find information fast and being able to find good stuff, it helps. All right. So how do we do this? How do we help our students become more information literate? And the best way to go about this, and this is a big thing, is thoughtful, programmatic integration of information literacy skills across the entire curriculum. We want to teach information literacy in a thoughtful, progressive, programmatic way to make sure that our students all get the same thing and that they're graduating from Goodwin College as information literate people. How do we do that? That's a great question. I have here a rubric that gives us a start. Pass that around. This is actually from the American Association of Colleges and Universities. They have these rubrics called value rubrics. And what they did here, they've ranked different information literacy skills from benchmark, which is where you come in to college, to capstone. So in these 5 different areas here, like determine the extent of information needed, under benchmark, which you see on the right-hand side, has difficulty defining the scope of the research question, difficulty determining key concepts, all the way up to something at the capstone where someone can effectively define the scope of the research, effectively determine key concepts, and select resources that actually relate to their topic. That's the progression that this rubric outlines. That's why I like this rubric. It's actually fairly simple. And it does outline a progression over time from benchmarks to these sort of 2 and 3 milestones where people are learning how to do things up through where they should be at a capstone class, like a 400 level class where they're going for their bachelor's degree, where they should be when they graduate from college, from Goodwin College with a bachelor's degree, they should be at that point. So that's the idea. This is just one idea of a programmatic kind of information literacy initiative, but it's a good one, and it's at least gives us a baseline of something to look at. All right.
And it's also an incredible source. Too.
Yes, yeah. If you've ever used these value rubrics before, they're all over the place. Lots of faculty use them. They're on all different subjects. So if you're interested, just go to the AAC&U's website. They have tons of them. Look for the value rubrics. So it's going to be one on your subject, I guarantee you. All right. So some important things to realize if we're talking about putting information literacy into a curriculum. Information literacy is not the responsibility of only a single class. This is really important because I hear from people all the time, they should have learned that in their English classes, right? I hear that a lot. They should have learned that at their RDA class or wherever. But information literacy skills, you can't teach them all in a single class. It's just not possible. There's so much. It's something that is best done across the curriculum through multiple classes. You don't have to do everything in each class, but say you want to teach students how to do research well. You can have them start off by doing simple research projects, and then have them progress to more complicated things, searching for journal articles, being able to use real references, and make sure that you sort of scaffold things as you go. And this can be done through multiple different classes so that we bring our students along, and by the time that they get to that capstone point, they really can do it. But that can't just be one class. We have to make sure that we're doing this programmatically. The skills should be infused throughout the curriculum in all kinds of different ways. Not just, here's a research paper, do it. But there are all kinds of other exercises and lessons that can be very helpful, and I'll show you some of the ones that we have. A lot of programs are doing this. They may not do it in a way that's always intentional, but they are doing it in lots of different ways, and I see this throughout not just this college, but other places where I have been. So yes, let me show you some examples of things that can be done. All right, we have on the library's page, we do have an information literacy guide where I put together as much as I can to help folks with information literacy instruction. So this guide is a place where you can find information about information literacy. I also do have that rubric that I handed out, it's just right there. But I also do have things like lessons and exercises. This information literacy at Goodwin link right here. Ooh, that's not working, that's okay. There's this presentation. It's right here. So if you want to look at it again, use it for your own purposes, change it, whatever you like. There it is. Free to download it. But we do have lessons and exercises that we have put together at the library that you can feel free to grab and use whenever you want to. So I've got lessons on basic searching skills. Here I have a lesson plan and a handout. Same thing here for web evaluation. There's like a little test that we can have them go through. APA Style Central, lots of folks ask us about that. We have right here an introduction to it. Popular versus scholarly, narrowing a topic, creating a research question, and reading and understanding journal articles. So all of these things we do have.
Can you backtrack for a second?
Sure.
Just of how you got there.
Absolutely.
In the main library link.
So here's the library's page,
Mm-hmm.
right here under Faculty Staff Services.
Perfect. Thank you.
Information Literacy Guide. And you'll see the links to lessons and exercises right here on the left. And this is the kind of thing that you'll see if we take a look at one of the lesson plans. Okay. So this is just the kind of lesson plan that you might see. I came out of an education program and was a high school teacher, you can probably tell. Because this is the way I make my lesson plans with all these little things. So, but that's what you would see. And we do have some handouts and resources that people can use. Certainly, you can use librarians to help you do this. We're always glad to come in, talk to your classes about any of these subjects. We're happy to work with you to develop information literacy exercises that make the most of what we've got. We're happy to show people around our resources, show them how to do the research, talk about APA Style Central, all of that stuff. But there are resources available for you to use on your own if you want to. So however you want to do it, we want to give you options.
And you have staff on duty at nighttime for night classes?
We sure do. Yep. Yeah, I'm doing one tonight. So over at Penn Road. So yes, we have staff event. We're here until 9:30 at night most days. Friday we close at 6. Saturday we're here till 4 o'clock. But we're here, so we'll be around. And you do have a library liaison. So you can see who your liaison is right there. And information is not quite up to date. I'll have to fix that. So we've tried to put together, as much good information as we can for you just about this subject. Does anyone have any questions for me so far? Any of this stuff?
This is great.
Okay, so I'll go up then. Go back into my presentation. Okay. As for the assessment piece, there are different ways to assess information literacy. There are some standardized tests out there. Some of them are okay, and some of them are kind of iffy. Most of them are used to evaluate an entire school and not necessarily a class. A lot of information literacy assessment is going to be qualitative instead of quantitative, which means you don't get nice little data sets. You have to look at what people have actually written. But that's usually the best way to do it, is to actually get in there and see what they have written, what they have found. Again, the library does play a role in this, but this is something that really should be faculty-led and faculty-driven, and that's what we want it to be. So we want faculty to be able to take the lead on information literacy, and we're here to support you, but we don't want to tell you what to do. Okay, so here's what I want us to do right now then. Turn to the person next to you, and I want you to talk about, in classes that you have done, describe 1 or 2 things you have done to integrate some kind of information literacy concept into a class that you've taught. Or, if you would rather, talk about something that you might be able to do. Okay? And we'll come back and we'll talk about them in a couple minutes. So, turn to somebody next to you or nearby and discuss.
I haven't done
Honesty is the best policy.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I use it in my gap class all the time.
At the very
because we
beginning,
have to
talking
teach
about what
them how
information
to
literacy
research
means.
properly and
Basically,
to question.
You could be introducing
So
information
this is
literacy
great that
when
they
you just tell
have, now we can
students
lead them to this.
why that website
So,
wasn't a good website to go
How do
to,
you
or why you
begin
couldn't
that?
delete
Do you begin it or
banking
do you?
see
Definitions,
the conversation in cap.
information literacy, kind of here.
I actually,
So yeah.
yeah, I just,
So
I just
sometimes I'll see something
start
on
walking
Facebook,
through the,
and I'll say
we
to
talk about
students
the
like,
URL,
one
we talk
taken
about,
around,
kind of
but
similar, you missed the beginning
not
of the
doing
thing,
head
where she talked
transplants,
about
right?
this particular
So
article
something
and how do
students
you
are
know
nervous
it's
and I'm
true.
like, so what do you
Yeah.
guys think of that?
And
Well,
so
that's all
we
that.
start
That
asking
really
those
you think are
probing questions,
possible,
and then
you
we drill
know,
down
like,
to
think about all
ways
the things that
look
would have
for.
to be
So looking at
done,
accuracy,
you
looking at
know,
if the website
getting them to
that you're
actually
going
really
to is
think about whether
current,
it's
if
valid,
the
you know,
person who's
where was
writing
the
articles
research
credible,
done,
you
something
know,
like that.
search for this
Yeah, what do you have like
information.
discussion
So, and not always
Our
going
discussion
by
board, we have to do it.
the first thing you read that it's true.
What
I mean, I like doing, when I'm doing
Would I
like
be
research on something,
interested in
is I always look at the author
portion,
and what
maybe
it's,
creating more
this is
research
a
questions.
person looks like they just came out of high
That would
school,
actually be
running a blog. Might
Even
wanna
at
dig a
like
little
the
deeper.
120
The
level.
other thing I do a lot, especially
Just get them
with like
thinking
researching software or something like that,
away from like rote
is
copy
if you see
responses.
something comes up first in the results.
Or even
2
post
years
stuff
old,
that you know is going through
I use the
Facebook and
tools
say,
on the Google search term.
is this valid?
What I think
And
might
if they
be
say yes or no, you
most,
say,
more
well, why?
effective,
You know, a
like,
couple weeks ago,
we just changed
stuff
the
was coming through
Blackboard,
about vaccines
learn.
being, somebody, you
That's
know, whatever.
fairly new,
Somebody I knew
so if I'm
posted it,
looking
or
to
thought I would know
troubleshoot
something.
something,
So what I did
and
is
I
I
get
went in
something
and I went
that's
to the
2 years
CDC
old,
website,
and we've only
this
been
place
using
where you
this
can
for the last
report adverse
4 or 5
vaccine
months.
Right.
things,
I'll
and then I
It's
went
not
to
gonna
the
be
yeah,
accurate.
parameters a
or when
little
people
and
put
they
GMO
did
stuff
it
up there, and I just
Oh, I hate
will
that one.
go to the correct website and I'll post a valid link where they can
well,
actually
The
get
first
the
thing I
information.
did was call
So you could do sort of the
Susan
same
Jane
thing
and say,
and say,
can you,
okay, this just
can
came
you
through,
do
you know,
October 10th
Facebook.
at 6 o'clock
Um,
in
do you
room
believe it or not,
142
do
in
you
the
believe it?
Hoffman
And what
Library?
are your, what's your
It was like the
evidence?
first
So
thing
you
to
can
do,
go
but,
research and see whether
I have
it's a
the
valid
grad school
website, it's a valid
so
publication, it's
it's
a valid
brand new, but the
something like that.
amazing thing is how people done your
So you get them to
capstone, right?
think
Now they're in my class,
and not just believe
they've
everything they see.
completely forgotten everything.
Or get the kids to do it.
So
Get
it's,
the kids to post something
you
that
know,
they saw on
when you say, well,
Facebook.
where would you
that they
go,
weren't
what would
sure,
you do, how would you
and
get there?
the other
You know,
students in that class
reintroducing
to
the
say,
library.
well, this is why I
That's
don't
really
think
where
that's
I'm
valid.
at right now, in starting to say, you know, the importance of validating your ideas. I do also tell people, you know, if you
Yeah.
went to a doctor and they said, we're gonna use 20-year-old medicine, do you want that doctor? And they say, no, of course not. All right, well, why would you want a source
Yeah,
that's 20 years old and
Yesterday I
probably
had
out of
one.
date?
She kept going.
So I'm trying to use analogies to get them to
Her
look
hand was
beyond their textbook or whatever, but Susan Jane has to start it again because they're, it's just not as prevalent in their heads right
I do it even beyond the school, I do it with my own family.
now.
They said, or I read, well,
You
how do
saw
you
that
know
it's
that that's
like
true? And I
Oh my
always make
God,
them
they say
validate
things and you're
everything.
like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I like the medical.
Sort of annoying.
Yeah.
Believe everything you read.
Yeah.
All right, let's come on back together and let's Let's hear some of your ideas. I want to hear what you've done or what you'd like to do. Who'd like to share?
So I use it in CAP all the time because, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of
like you
overlap.
said, the digital literacy and stuff
Absolutely.
follows through. So, you know, we have to show them when we're talking about searching through the internet and
Yeah.
how do you search correctly and how do you, why, you know, you can't take things for face value and that you have to drill down and look at these
Yeah.
various things to make sure that it's current and valid and.
I often talk to students about how search engines, any search engine kind of works, because they don't really
Right.
have an idea of what like a keyword search does.
Right, using parentheses,
Right, I mean, even just the fact that it matches words, they don't even
Yeah.
know, they don't know that.
right.
Yeah.
So that changes how they do
Keywords.
searches,
Yeah.
and they don't type like an entire question in, because I guess they think the little gremlin behind the screen will say, trying to figure out what the answer to that question is. But yeah, so once you can understand those things and understand the computer literacy piece of it, there's so much overlap there. There really is. That's great. Others share.
Sure, so students will ask questions, based on something they saw in you know,
Yeah.
Facebook or something.
Absolutely.
And either, you know, I'll first say, well, do you think that's possible, right? You know, is that even a credible idea or thought? Sometimes I'm in class and they'll ask me a question, I'll be like, okay, let's Google that. So I'll just put the Google up and then I'll say, of course Wikipedia comes up or something else comes up. And I'll say, well, and I'll click on Wikipedia and they'll go, oh, you're not supposed to do that.
That's the one thing they've learned. Wikipedia, not for school.
No, watch me. I'm going all the way down to
Yes.
the references.
Yes.
And look, now I can find some references to this. Or I'll go through and I'll go, not a good site, not a good site. And, oh, .gov. This is something. So I like try to model how to
Good.
find that information
Yeah.
and what's valid in class.
That's great.
I have one that I always do in my class because it gets a laugh, and I always apologize to the males in the room. It's male pregnancy, and it's this site that has a man who looks like he's pregnant, and it was first built as a Time magazine, and so then then there's these sources in there. There's other magazines, and it talks. But it doesn't really talk about male pregnancy. It talks about seahorses and all this. So it's nothing relevant to what, you know, it's supposed to be about. But the crazy thing as it progressed, and the other thing, the pregnant guy ended up in a Dairy Queen ad. So I kind of like filtered down to how this, it was just this hoax that was put up there by college students. But anyways, they ended up changing the articles on the side, and one of them was about a male pregnancy on the Oprah show, because it really he wasn't a male to begin with, he was a female, but he changed to a male. So it's like these kind of things you got to read into the information, and so you're like, oh my god. But you know, as adults we know there's no male pregnancy, but if it's a young child and they're looking at this, they see, oh, male pregnancy, they see Time magazine, they see, you know, it feels like that gives it credibility because it's a valid.
There's a lot of those sort of hoax kind of sites out there.
Yeah.
My favorite is the dihydrogen monoxide warning
Yes.
page. And we all know what dihydrogen monoxide is. It's out there in the river. But people see the name and they're like, oh god, it's dangerous stuff. That's a good one. That one is several years out of date because it looked like a government page looked in the 90s basically.
Right.
But yeah, no, there's all kinds of stuff you can do with that. I like to show people, I like to show them medical journalism or science journalism of any kind, and then compare it to the actual article that was written. That's always fun because there's always going to be something in there that gets lost in the translation. And you know, basically the article will just say, cancer cured, but the actual journal article will say, well, in rats this happened one time and with 3, you know. So that's a great exercise to look at as well. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. Anything else? Anything else you'd like to share? No? All right. Okay. So here's our thoughts for the end. Information literacy really is, I think it's probably one of the most important skills we can have as 21st century people living here and now. I think it's a crucial, vital skill. Integrating these skills to the curriculum, it does help our students become more information literate? Yes, but it also does enhance their learning at every single stage. It does make them more attractive employees. And your library liaison is here to help you with all of this stuff. So you can bounce ideas off of us, use our assignment pages, use our exercises, ask us to come in and talk to your class. All those things are great. So, you know, I leave you hopefully. You've thought about it a little bit more. And hopefully you want to take this back and talk about it with other folks. So, final thoughts or questions from the group
Well, this is great, and I love the library page, that's huge. I'm gonna share it with
Good.
my students tonight in
Alright.
IDA.
Good.
So if students had a question
Yes.
as part of an assignment,
Mm-hmm.
could they come to you and say, I'm supposed to research this question, how do I do it?
That's what we're here for.
Okay.
That's the core of our job. So the librarians, what we are actually here to do is our whole purpose is we're here to support students throughout the research process. And that can be anything from coming up with a topic, you know, we can help them brainstorm topics. We can help them refine those topics from going from like, I'd like to do a paper about football to something that they can actually research. We're also there to help them find and evaluate information. We're there to help them with the APA piece of putting it into some kind of order. The Academic Success Center can help them with the actual writing of it. But that's why we're here. We're here to help them throughout that process. That's a big part of what we do. So finding, using information.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Good job.